Welcome to Pigskins and Pageantry, a podcast dedicated to all things SEC football. My name is Wes, and I'd like to invite you to join me, Jesse, and Matt each week as we discuss last week's games, news from around the league, make predictions for the upcoming games, and much, much more. And what's up, everybody? It's Wes, and welcome to another exciting episode of Pigskins and Pageantry. We are officially into the thick of the SEC schedule, and that means more excitement, joyous wins, and devastating losses. Some more than others. Joining me, as always, our resident Alabama fan, Jesse. What's going on? How are you?
I am doing well after seeing the rankings that don't matter at this point in the season, but still make my day somehow. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling on top.
Hey, I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm just as excited as you are. So, and our resident Tennessee Vol fan. What's going on, Matt? It's good to have you back on the show. What's going on?
Yeah, I've been on temporary assignment. I'm back now, and as you can see, I am in the middle of a tiger hunt. So we'll see how things go.
Things are kind of
like
I'm nervous.
Rough out there.
I'm really nervous. It probably will be.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, before we get to those games, let's talk about the games from last weekend.
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
All right, let's start off with Kentucky at Ole Miss. Ole Miss winning this one, 22-19. Matt, the only one to pick Ole Miss in this one. So, it was funny. I was watching this one, and this was the only SEC game on at the beginning of the day. So I was focused solely on this one. And it was amazing to me just listening to them talk how Lane Kiffin has been what he's been able to do in terms of just plugging holes in the roster with the transfer portal. And I know we've talked about that a little bit, especially on the first show, updating people on the roster this season, but 24 players from the transfer portal. And, perhaps the most important of which is Jackson Dart, whose eye black, by the way, I discovered this week is inspired by Anakin Skywalker. If you notice, he's got the single streak of black across the eye here. Said he's a huge Star Wars fan. So I was like, man, that's kind of cool. So, kind of a little bit of a fan now. So he showed some inconsistency overall, though. Again, offense was good, though, obviously enough to get the win. Too many miscues by Kentucky, special teams mistakes, fumbles. Kentucky, and we were talking about last week, them getting Chris Rodriguez back from suspension. That was definitely, a shot in the arm for their offense, but not enough for the win. And like I said, there were some good moments, but ultimately they couldn't get out of their own way. Credit to Ole Miss, though, did what they needed to do. Let's listen to what Coach Kiffin had to say about this win.
Coach, you pride yourself in the defensive resurgence of this program. What was it like watching your defense at the end there win you this game?
It was really cool to come to two stops like that and get the ball back. Awesome to see. What
did they do well against quarterback Will Levis today?
Well, they rushed him. They were motivated all week by their offensive coordinator saying, bring the blitz and we'll light you up. So there you go.
You just beat a top 10 Kentucky team. What did you learn about this group today?
We got to get a lot better. We could have finished the game earlier, screwed around and didn't play well enough on offense in the second half. So we have a lot of work to do with a lot of really good teams coming to play. So we kind of got out of here with this one, which was good. It was good to have some people in the stands, and really 5-0. All right.
That sounds pretty good. You called out your fans this week. They showed up. They listened to you, Coach.
They did. Better than our 4-minute offense. So glad they were here.
Thank you, Coach. Congrats.
Oh, man, that's Lane's always a fun interview. I really just want to make sure that Will Levis's middle finger on his left hand is okay.
Anthony Munoz's finger.
Yeah, Jesse, what did you think about this game?
This one was wild. I had to catch this one in clips and highlights afterwards. I literally came into the house. It must have been the last few minutes of the game. So all of a sudden I walk in and I hear my dad going, "Oh my God, you just lost in the game. Get in here." And I just ran in there and I'm like, oh my goodness, Will Levis didn't let everybody get set. This is bad.
Yes, that one was rough.
Yeah, it was wild. I think I think a couple things. Kentucky had some mistakes. Obviously, they failed on 2 extra points, one wide left, 39-yard field goal attempt in the first half, and an illegal motion penalty that really wiped out their chances of a potential game-winning TD pass in that final minute. And that was the difference in a really close game. And the win snapped an 8-game winning streak that spanned 2 seasons. So that sucks. Coach Stoops said, obviously, it's a very difficult loss. It's just heartbreaking for our players. And I would have to agree. I did not see that one coming. I thought Kentucky would be able to put this one away. I think mental errors were an issue. And obviously, we heard it in Kiffin's interview. Don't tout your offense about rushing if you can't back it up. But good on Ole Miss, as you mentioned, plugging in holes with the transfer portal. We talked about it before. Coach Kiffin is certainly the coach that you want to play for. If you're in the transfer portal, you're hoping he's going to pick you up because he's definitely going to put you in the lineup. He's also somebody that is very big on NIL, doesn't care. His players seem to really love him. He's a great offensive mind, and he plays it cool. I mean, you got to give him that. He truly plays it cool. I was a little bit nervous for them after their September schedule seemed to be a little softer than, what I anticipated. But right now, Ole Miss is 16-3 over 2 seasons. And if you think about it, they might be the best SEC team outside of Alabama and Georgia, which is wild. They're 5-0 for the first time since I don't even know, but maybe
you said he was playing it cool, Jesse, and he knew that they were 5-0 when he said that. He was just trying to play. Oh, what are we 5-0 now? Yeah,
I know. I think, and I hate to say this, but I think if I was a player, I'd probably like Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, he's a player's coach, no doubt, 100%. What do we say? They're fraternity bros. They
are. They're bros. He's the president of the frat.
Exactly. Matt, what did you think about this game?
This was a great game. I saw the tail end of this one. I saw the finish. My heart goes out to Will Levis. There's nothing more painful for a quarterback than you dropping back to pass and somebody paws it out of your hand and you end up putting it on the turf, especially when you lose those. That's pretty rough. Overall, it was a really entertaining game. I picked Ole Miss in this. That was wishful thinking, but I'm glad I did. Kiffin keeps them rolling. It sometimes makes me wonder what would have been if Kiffin had stayed at Tennessee instead of going back off to USC. But maybe he needed to mature a little bit. I digress. One of the names that pops out here is Jinshawn Judkins for Ole Miss. He had 106 on the ground, had a long of 48 yards. I looked at his stats for the rest of the season so far, and he's been upwards of 80, 90, and 100 yards in each game they've played this season. So that's a name for that offense that seems to be moving pretty well. And by the way, how great of a football name is Jackson Dart? Like for a quarterback, that it's almost like you made that character. But this is a big win for Ole Miss, I think. It's going to be one of those things where they're going to have to build on it. And I think they've got a matchup coming with Bama here fairly soon, I think. Don't they? In the next 2-3 weeks, I think.
I was going to say they're showing the next, 5 games for Bama. Actually, the next 4 or 5 are going to be somewhat difficult.
Let's see. Yeah. We play them, I reckon, in November. I have a calendar up here.
Oh, that late?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's
by the way, what happened to Cavassier Smoke?
I get he's got an injury.
C-Rod came back, but
I think he's got an injury. Okay. Yeah, I think I saw that.
And
so I just saw Rebels 2 carries for 6 yards and was confused.
Yeah, he was limited certainly in the game because of that, I believe. I was definitely I was conflicted on this one. I kind of wanted Kentucky to win, but I mean, at the end of the day, I kind of view both of these teams the same. So
matched. And it's the first time that Ole Miss is 5-0 since 2014.
Yep. They just keep getting better under Ole.
Who's the head coach then?
2014.
Who's the head coach? 2014.
Was
that Freeze fella?
That would have been that Freeze fella. Good old Hugh.
Whatever happened to him?
He's still at Liberty, right? Or did he move on from there?
Yeah, I think so. No,
Yeah.
I think he's still at Liberty.
And you want to know who was our offensive coordinator then?
Was it then? He was Lane was
He was when I was there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, man, gosh, how time flies. Nice.
It's been that long since Lane was a
Lane was, he might have
coordinator
come
at
in 15,
Bama.
but let's see, when was Lane? He was there when I was there because I saw him. Yeah, 14 to 16.
Nice.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. All right, speaking of Bama, let's move on to Bama at Arkansas, and Bama won this one 49-26. And I paused there because, you know, there was a portion of this game where you felt like things could really have gone awry, and then it just, you know, turned back on itself once again. Matt got the point in this one as well. Jesse, I'm gonna let you go first before I even say anything, because I feel like you probably have a lot of feelings on this.
I did. You watched the game.
I know, I was there.
That's true. This is one of those games where the score is not entirely reflective of how the game went. Obviously, we got in a rhythm really quickly in the beginning of the game with Bryce Young still at the helm. For those that didn't watch it, Bryce goes out with a shoulder injury, which we were all very nervous about. Jalen Milroe comes in. Jalen Milroe is a different style quarterback, I would say. To me, he's a little reminiscent of Jalen Hurts, his ability to run the ball very well. He's very quick. He can throw too, don't get me wrong, but it is definitely different. He's a younger guy, he's redshirt freshman. So we bring in Milroe and we make a lot of mental errors. We have errors on special teams. We are idiots on an onside kick by Arkansas. We have, you know, bad snaps. It was a lot of mental mistakes, I feel like, and people probably playing with nerves, knowing that there's somebody else in the quarterback position. But we did start to settle in. Jahmyr Gibbs, oh my word, sir. For those that didn't watch it, this man saved the day and ran the ball down that field like, I don't even, like someone was hurting his mama in the end zone. I mean, it was wild, but
did I see where he was clocked faster than any
even
NFL player?
Jahmyr Gibbs recorded a faster speed against Arkansas than any NFL player has this season.
Yeah.
He had 18 carries, 206 rushing yards for 11.4 average, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a maximum run speed of 22.8 miles per hour.
Which brings a whole new fun dynamic in the game. I just see some guy over there on the sidelines with a radar gun going.
It's wild. I mean, we were nervous. We're like, you know, he's coming from an ACC school. I know he was a really good running back there, but like, what does that mean in the SEC? It means he's really good. Turns out, excellent. Nick Saban has never lost to Arkansas in his 16 years at Alabama. And we opened with a 20-0 lead in the second quarter behind 2 touchdown series from Bryce Young, and then another 2 from his replacement, Jalen Milroe. After that, like I said, we had some errors. We started to sputter a little bit. Arkansas definitely capitalized on that. But Milroe finished 4 of 9 passing for 65 yards and a touchdown. And our offense had -1 yard in the third quarter, which is not great. Then we saw our 28-point lead kind of evaporate. Then we entered the fourth quarter, did a lot better. In the words of Nick Saban, we didn't maintain our intensity. We let them get back in the game at one point. The kicking game errors, the onside kick, the bad snap on the punt, those were really our errors. So it was hard to watch at one point. And then we started to relax a little bit.
It was very tense in the house for a good while.
The decibels.
That's putting it mildly. Like, I feel like this is like people just don't understand. Like, they listen to the show and they hear us talk about that, and there's no way to really
at some point
describe that.
You just record on your phone the noise, like no video, just noise.
Yeah, just the noise.
and then just play a clip. Everyone will have to take out their earbuds because it is deafening.
There are pitches on the scale that will blow your eardrums for sure. Matt, what were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I was anticipating Bama's offense not to put up that many points. I mean, I think I saw the total score was 500, or sorry, total yards was 555 yards, which against Arkansas's defense I thought was quite a few. I was really kind of shocked at how effectively Bama was able to roll the ball. And Jahmyr Gibbs, like Jesse said, rolling downhill, like somebody insulted his mama, and he was going to get over 200 yards. Anytime a running back gets over 200 yards, you kind of have to stand up and take a look at it. So the other thing that kind of jumped out at me is KJ Jefferson. He went 13 for 24 for 155 yards and a touchdown. Not a great day. I was anticipating him to be a little bit more of a playmaker. He had 38 yards on the ground, but still was expecting him to be a little bit more out there. But, that Bama defense was able to hold him down. So, yeah, just another case of Bama doing Bama things. We'll just have to wait and see if they can keep up that intensity as they go forward.
Yeah, I thought Jalen Milroe did great when called upon. Obviously, you don't want to see Bryce go down. And anytime that happens, I mean, you can't say that a guy who won the Heisman, that him leaving the game is not going to affect the team. Of course it is. But I thought Milroe did great when called upon. Obviously, as you said, Jesse, he's more of a running threat. So you have to account for that as well. I don't know that Arkansas was. I was going to say, I don't know that Arkansas was prepared for that. He
comes off the bench and gets 91 yards and a tutty. I think he did pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then it still baffles me. How did Jahmyr Gibbs end up at Georgia Tech? How did Jeff Collins woo him to Georgia Tech? How did that happen? I don't know. Didn't last,
we were talking
obviously.
About it on Saturday. I was like, maybe he just really had this aspiration of being an engineer.
Yeah.
And they were like,
maybe you really like
to play football too. And he was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll play football. And then they were like, you should really kind of kick that engineering dream to the side.
Right. You need to play football for us. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So it's kind of funny about this game where we mentioned the mistakes, but really, other than some of those self-inflicted wounds, Bama really dominated the game. If it wasn't for those, I mean, obviously it was kind of a little bit of a blowout anyway. Eventually. So interesting, as you
they
said,
had
Matt.
3 scores in the fourth quarter. I think that's an indication that they're gonna keep going.
Yeah,
and 21 points in the fourth quarter is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
No doubt. So
Bryce Young is also day to day at this point.
Yes, he is. So we'll see more to follow on that. We'll see how his condition progresses. I'm glad to hear
Gary Danielson was mortified, by the way. I don't know if y'all saw all the Gary Danielson hate on Twitter this past week.
No,
they
I missed
are
that.
hot to trot. The Gary Danielson Bama Love Fest is
I heard that he was under backlash, but I thought it was for, he says
For
things that are
anything else.
I was going to say he says things that are off the wall all the time. So that's not really that unusual.
What was it that he said? He did say one comment that I actually thought was funny, which I've never thought anything Gary said was funny before. But he said something where it was like an aggressive show of strength or something like that.
That was actually Brad. So
was it Brad?
Yeah, of course it would be, because as I say, given between the two, Gary's not gonna,
I know. So I was like, I'm so impressed. Never mind.
But
I miss Vern.
No.
Vern. Everybody hated Vern, but I liked Vern.
No, Vern had no
I
idea
loved Vern. I thought Vern was great to listen to.
The only thing that I can say about
at least I didn't hate his guts like I do that horse's ass Gary Danielson.
The only thing that I can say about Vern is he had the familiar voice that when he spoke, you knew what was going on. It's one of those deals. I don't know, but I just wasn't a fan. Other than that, I wasn't really a fan. But anyway, all right, let's move on to a big surprise to me. Texas A&M at Mississippi State. Mississippi State just annihilating them 42-24. Jesse getting the point in this one. it was kind of funny because I was watching the game and there wasn't a ton of scoring in the first half, no scoring at all in the first quarter. And then State was up 14-0 at half. Then they blocked a field goal, returned it 50 yards for a touchdown. That was huge. And then Will Rogers and company just exploded, aided by a pick six by Emmanuel Forbes as well. So utter domination of Jimbo Fisher's squad down there in Starkville. So I mean, I was not expecting that, but wow, just what an incredible game. Let's hear what Mike Leach had to say about it.
Coach, how was your team able to play such complimentary football tonight?
We've been working on it a long time, and I thought we did in a lot of phases. I thought we did a good job defense picking up the offense picking up the defense, after sudden changes. I thought that was good, but biggest thing, we played real hard. We played real hard and did a good job moving on to the next play.
What did you see that was allowing you guys to run the football so effectively today?
Well, we blocked it up and ran hard mainly, but they're kind of in between sometimes trying to cover the pass and trying to come forward for the run, And then I thought our O-line did a good job. I thought Dylan ran for some really tough yards.
So the interview is cut short there because there's more to it. There's a second part that we'll listen to later.
More.
But so I love when he does like the little he's trying to get his thoughts going, and he'll say something and then he just pauses and does a little but
it's like an old Model T trying to crank up.
Yeah, and there's also just a tone to his voice that reminds you of just like an elderly grandfather where you're talking and he's like, what did you say? Matt, what were your thoughts on this game?
I just want to point out for the record that I was shocked by this score. I did not. We need to take a minute to talk about how preseason hype means absolutely squat, and how Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies were completely overblown at the beginning of the season. I am not sure what's going on in Aggie land, but holy cow. Mississippi State's shown some improvement, don't get me wrong, but beating A&M like that, I just that's a bad look for old Jimbo. I know Jesse's probably licking her chops waiting for the axe to fall on Jimbo Fisher, but man, that's rough. That's really rough. I also want to point out something. I was looking at the stat sheet on this, and I lost it. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. Mississippi State had 13 penalties in this game for 138 yards, and they still beat Texas A&M by like 18. So not a good look there, Jimbo. It might be time to start throwing out Christmas trees again.
Jesse, I know you
if they can afford the buyout.
Right. Jesse, I know you were excited, but were you surprised at this?
I was surprised at the amount that they beat them. I thought that these two teams would have been closer as far as the level of competition goes. And the first quarter made it seem like they really were. You're looking and there's just like no score. Turns out they're not. The Bulldogs were very efficient offensively with 473 yards, 329 of those from Rogers on 31 of 45 passes with 3 touchdowns. Ra Thomas had 5 catches for 134 yards and a score, and State also rushed for 144 yards. That's a ton of offense, especially against a team that was touted so much at the beginning of the season. Johnson was 18 of 25 passing for 201 yards and a touchdown before leaving in the fourth quarter with the hand injury. State sacked Johnson 4 times and posted 6 tackles for a loss, led by 1.5 sacks by their backup linebacker, JP Purvis. They forced A&M into 4 turnovers, including 3 inside the red zone, and took advantage of that. You can't have 4 turnovers, certainly not in the red zone. Seems like sloppy football. Not really sure what's happening in Aggieland either, knowing that they're coming off of, such a high-ranking recruiting class. Again, it goes back to what's the coaching staff doing? Because I just don't know.
And let's not forget that the bulk of that recruiting class was defensive players, or at least some of the bigger names were defensive. And the defense just giving up a ton of yards here. I mean, I know one thing that Mississippi State has been trying to improve upon all year is more explosive plays. Yeah, they're able to, dink and dunk and get little yards here and there, but they've really been trying to get those big explosive plays. And they had, multiple of those this game. So obviously they found something that was working, and A&M was unable to adjust to it. So I like the rest of you. I was excited to see State do well, but I was completely floored by how it happened.
If you think about it too, and this just hit my noggin, thinking about Jimbo Fisher and his tenure at other universities as well. It's like he hits the scene. Everyone's super stoked about it. They're like, quarterback whisper, this is the guy. We're going to pay a lot of money, all of this. And I'm well aware that FSU went to a national championship. I understand that. But it seems like there was such a peak, and then it just started to slowly go downhill. And it's almost like we're seeing
it's called a regression.
Yeah. It's like there's this flash in the pan, and then it just simmers out.
Mm-hmm. Jesse, does this change anything, do you think, about the matchup next week with Bama, with A&M just,
Absolutely not.
No.
Because this is what we thought going into Kyle Field last year. We thought they were not going to be great. We were like, this is going to be fine. No worries. I don't ever want us to go into any game thinking no worries, because that's when mental mistakes happen. That's when you start to beat yourself. I am very happy it's at Bryant-Denny Stadium this year and not at Kyle Field, but I don't think in this day and age, in this competition that, we play in every week, that you can count anybody out. I think it does encourage you that maybe with a backup quarterback in, that will be okay. But still, it's one of those things that I would never just count them out because of this. We don't have the same offense that Mississippi State does.
True. I think it might make a big difference to CBS, though. I think when they booked this 8:00 on CBS spot, they were really hoping that both teams would be firing on all cylinders, and that off-season feud would play into it a little bit too. Suddenly a little bit less charged, but like you said,
I swear to high heaven, if Jimbo Fisher is the offensive coordinator at Alabama next year, I'm going to lose my mind. The amount of unwell I will be. I can't even talk about it.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say,
guys,
you're a long way from there right now, but yeah.
I do want to point out that according to ESPN, Texas A&M is 102nd in passing yards for the season and 97th in rushing yards for the season.
Yeah, that offense is not pretty.
Not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
not a good look.
From one form of not pretty to another, let's talk about LSU at Auburn. LSU winning this one 21-17. Look, I actually apologize. We said the same score. Somehow I missed that.
I didn't realize it either.
I didn't realize because I went last. If I would have realized, I would have changed it because that's no fun. Anyway, we both got the point because we did the same score. Anyway, now it seems like the hallmark of this Brian Harsin program, among other things, is the inability to hold on to a lead. And we saw this the last, what was it? I think 5 games to close out the regular season last year where they had a lead and, they blew those leads. They were up on LSU 17-0 in this game in the second quarter, and they never scored again. LSU's first touchdown was on a scoop and score, and somehow they managed to win the game despite only 5 passing yards in the second half. So, I don't know how I would describe that win, but let's listen to how Brian Kelly would describe it.
You were down 17-0 and you come roaring back in stunning fashion. What'd you learn tonight?
Well, we got grit. I mean, to go on the road and not play your best, but to find a way to win against Auburn, it's a tough place to play. The SEC's hard, and each and every week when you win, you appreciate winning. Winning's hard to win, in the SEC, and our guys just kept playing and made some plays, made the big play here at the end with the interception, and it wasn't perfect. But sometimes, you learn a lot about just grit and determination, and then we got a lot of coaching to do, and we got a lot of room for improvement.
Congratulations, enjoy.
Appreciate it.
I have an extra reason to agree that winning in the SEC is hard. But before we get there, Jesse, what were your thoughts on this game?
Woof. I mean, the only thing I can think of when I watch Auburn now is just like, at what point does Harsin get fired? I'm just trying to see what that's going to be. But it's like you said, they had this lag last year where they had so many points and then it was just over. All these leads were gone. Last week, luckily, they were kind of bailed out by Missouri's goal line fumble, but there was no bailout this time. There was nothing. They actually had to play ball, and they didn't. LSU came up with that really big last play. Brooks ripped the ball away from an LSU transfer and Coy Moore after a catch with 2 minutes and 18 seconds left in Auburn's failure to capitalize on making it past midfield. But he said in a post-game interview, they ran that play like 6 times. So I knew it was coming. That's not good. That doesn't help. Daniels only passed for 80 yards. After he came in, he was the backup quarterback. Daniels passed for 80 yards, also ran for 59 and 1-yard touchdown with 15 seconds left before halftime. It just seemed like nothing could really get going for Auburn after they had that lead. And I don't know why that is. I don't know what's happening from a coaching perspective. To me, if they're running a play like 6 times, what is the offensive coordinator calling? That doesn't seem like a very effective play calling strategy if you're losing your lead. But I don't know. I'm just waiting to see what happens with Brian Harsin. Again, LSU still has a lot to work on their side as well. Brian Kelly said it, they were gritty, but they just happened to make the right play at the right time because their performance was also not stellar.
Jesse, I'm glad you brought up numbers because Matt, let's take a look at a few more here. So you're talking about Daniels. Jaden Daniels passed for LSU for 80 yards. That's total 80 yards. That wasn't like a quarter or a half. That's the game. LSU's leading rusher Williams had 68 yards. Emery Jr., LSU's leading receiver with 39 yards. LSU's total yards are 270 to Auburn's 438. But the big stat there, Auburn 4 turnovers, LSU 1. Matt, what do you make of this? Oh, you're on mute there, buddy. I think.
I see your lips moving.
This stupid thing. It's
there you
being
go.
dumb tonight.
You're back.
I don't know why it muted. I'm not sure what's happening in Auburn. I don't see how in the world you get. Hold on a minute. I got it right in front of me. I lost it. Come on, computer. 438 yards in a game when you and still lose the game. Another thing that kind of pops off the page at me is where in the world is Tank Bigsby? Because Tank was lights out through most of last season. He was a hawk. Mm-hmm. That was a cornerstone of the Auburn offense last year. And this season, he hasn't done much. Like, listen to the stat line. 45 yards against LSU total rushing, 44 yards against Missouri, 39 yards against Penn State, 51 yards against San Jose State. Like, are they not calling his number? Are they not opening? Like, is the offensive line taking games off? I'm not sure what's going on with Auburn, but it's a situation where it's very confusing. He is a junior, so he's got another year.
I wonder if he transfers.
I mean, I'm not sure what happened. Because I seem to remember saying his name. I bet Lane Kiffin would take him in a heartbeat. I seem to remember last year we talked. I mean, he was over 1,000 yards last year. He was. He was averaging 4.9 on the ground. He had I don't see the other stat, but yeah, he had a good year last year.
He was expected to be their workhorse this year.
Yeah, and nothing's happened. I don't know if they changed up what they were planning on doing offense or what, but man, Auburn has to get something fixed.
Do you want to know another cool number stat here for this game? And if you're an Auburn fan, it's not cool at all. But Auburn has scored just 6 second half points in the last 3 games.
And that's wild. You talk about just the amount of yards that they had in this game. Robbie Ashford, I mean, for all intents and purposes, had a decent game, 337 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have the pick, but I mean, still, I mean, it's just wild. I am baffled about Bigsby as well. I mean, if you do the average there, he's a little bit less than, it's around 4 yards a carry. I think I'm averaging that right. But yeah, I mean, like that's insane. I mean, from a guy that we've seen be prolific in past years. It kind of makes me think that they're just not getting the push for the offensive line that he needs. Because I'm sure he didn't drop off that much in a single year. So I don't know. It's gosh, I mean, now I say that the Dogs have Auburn next week, and so who knows? I mean, it's the deepest, deep South's oldest rivalry. So all bets are off. So we'll see. But
watch Tank for run for 333 and shut us all up
for real. All right. Well, speaking of which, let's talk about Georgia at Mizzou. Georgia squeaking this one out 26-22. And you guys can admit it. I know you were both hoping that Mizzou was going to pull it off. It's fine.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
But
we're all about honesty here on the show. So I got the point in this one. Just because we all picked blowouts. I think somehow I picked the smallest one. But anyway, like I said, this is overall an embarrassing effort in most aspects, really. Offense out of sync. I mean, you could see receivers and Bennett just not on the same page. Offensive line unable to create those running lanes for the backs. Defense getting pushed around by Mizzou, and like we've been openly mocking Mizzou on the show because they've been pretty pathetic for most of the year in most aspects of play. But I mean, you got the national champions in the house that are ranked number 1. Of course, Jesse, you know this being a Bama fan, it's especially recently. I mean, when that's the case, teams are gunning for you. They're going to bring their best game that they've got. And honestly, they pushed us around on both sides of the line of scrimmage, offense and defense. I don't particularly know what lulled the Dogs to sleep, but they were able to kind of wake up a little bit near the end of the first half. Kudos to, and I can't remember who it was now, but the defensive back who ran down. Mizzou broke a run, and they were definitely, I was like, they were in the end zone to score a touchdown, but they didn't give up. Defense didn't give up, chased him down, tackled him on the 1-yard line. Mizzou had like a false start and a couple other mistakes, had to settle for a field goal. And that near the end of the first half was one of the big momentum turners, I think, in the game. The Dogs steadily gained momentum, continued to gain momentum in the second half, finally took the lead and held on in what is one of the only times that I think I can recall calling Mizzou's home stadium a hostile environment. And it was loud in there. You could tell. I mean, they were stoked. And it's kind of one of those funny things, like as a fan, I'm watching the game and I'm thinking the whole time, oh yeah, we're going to kick it into gear, right? And then more times pass, and they're like, well, we're going to kick it into gear. Well, the Dogs are going to win, right? They're going to figure stuff out eventually. And the game just kept ticking along, and it didn't happen. And we're like, what in the world? As well. I mean, Bennett, people were kind of criticizing him a little bit. I mean, he still had 312 yards. He had that, I guess you could call it a fumble, but it was really on the exchange with a running back or whatever. You could fault him for that, I guess, but still. Pretty big game from him. I don't know. It's a rough win, struggle win, as Funny Maine would say. Mm-hmm. But it is a win. And the reason I don't have a Kirby clip is because if you listen to Brian Kelly, it's basically the same thing. Winning in the SEC is hard, is what Kirby said. So Matt, what were your thoughts? We'll start with you.
Georgia was favored by 31 when the bet stopped being taken on this game. I'm not sure what happened. I think you're probably right, Wes. This is probably an example of Missouri put everything they could in the basket and they just brought their A game, and the Dogs got kind of caught in the lurch, so to speak. And this is a situation where, good teams are going to have down games. The thing is that good teams, when they run into those down games, find ways to win. And that's exactly what UGA ended up doing here. They put up 2 scores in the fourth quarter that let them get ahead. Defense stonewalled them for only 6 points in the second half for Missouri. So they made their adjustments at the half, as Georgia is wont to do. That seems to be a hallmark for them as of late. They'll see how things go at halftime. And so they found a way to pull this one off. If I'm a Georgia fan, I'm not too worried. Maybe slightly concerned, but not like too worried. Because again, remember, that's an offense that's been moving pretty well. Just a aberration game is probably what this was.
It's the rat poison. I don't know. What do you think, Jesse?
I was so happy to be in a bar in Georgia observing the emotions. So happy.
I can only imagine.
My friend that I was with, who is also a Georgia fan, I wasn't saying anything. I was just laughing. It was like, shut up. I was like, sorry. But also probably best I did shut up, because I was surrounded by Georgia fans and I would have no backup. This one was interesting. And I think the closeness can be attributed to one factor, and I think a Georgia win is attributed to another. So the closeness, I think, it's sloppy play coming out after all of this hype around them and all of the bad news coming out of Mizzou. I mean, you're like, it's Mizzou, it's fine, we're really good. You go in overconfident, and it's like you said, Wes, these teams want to beat the national champion, the reigning national champion. They're expected to lose. So they're going to leave it all out there. They're going in super hyped. Natty Champ's coming in sort of lackadaisical, and it becomes a perfect storm for an upset. And again, you had the same sort of thing happen the week before in a very uncharacteristically sloppy play with the 39-22 win against Kent State, which again, that score does not tell you the full story of that game. It's the same sort of thing. I think you were seeing the Bulldogs the same way, going in, not expecting much out of their opponent, and their opponent going for blood. The Tigers were really successful in rushing Bennett in the first half. And the Bulldogs failed to score on their first 5 possessions. That hasn't happened. That's wild. They had a stretch where there were a pair of fumbles that gave Missouri good field position. Georgia was pretty ineffective when it came to running the football in the first half. So a lot of coming out really flat on Georgia's end, I think, gets us a close score. What gets us a Georgia win is what I think is the opposite. I think Missouri failed to capitalize on some really advantageous moments that could have turned this game around. You mentioned one when, they get 2 Georgia turnovers and they only get 3 points out of that. Had they gotten a touchdown, we're in a very different ball game at this point, and I think that's going to haunt the Tigers. Another instance is failing to capitalize on an opportunity when they settled for a field goal after that really long 63-yard run from Cody Schrader that set them up, with first and goal at the 1-yard line in their last possession of the first half. That's going to haunt you. You got to capitalize on that. You're right there. You don't settle for a field goal. You got to push it in, run it under center, do something. False start penalty moved Mizzou backwards, gave Georgia defense a lot of life that they needed, resulting in a 22-yard field goal. So overall, I think had they capitalized on those opportunities, I think we're looking at a Mizzou win, and it's detrimental to the mentality of Georgia. But Mizzou did Mizzou things. They didn't capitalize on opportunities. And Georgia's going to have to really clean up their act and take their opponent seriously. We just talked about how trash Auburn is, but they cannot think that way going into a rivalry game.
It kind of feels like the same energy going in, right? Oh, this team's trash. Oh, wait a minute. We got to actually show up and play.
Absolutely.
By the way, there's nothing more annoying than a confident-looking Eli Drinkwitz. He's over there on the sidelines.
I still wanted to punch him in the face. I wanted Mizzou to win, and I wanted to punch him in the face.
With his hands on his hips, and he's doing that thing where, I don't think he actually has gum in his mouth, but he's just trying to look cool, like that or whatever. And I'm thinking, like, dude, by the way, Dirty Play took out Jalen Carter in this game. Looks like an MCL. Look, it was bang, bang. They still went low on him. I don't know how intentional it was. I'm not going to assume things, but still, we're trying to get stuff like that out of the game. And a low block took him out. He tried to come back, but he couldn't. So we'll see how long he's out. Hopefully not too long, but it looks like it may be better. MCL, I guess, is better than an ACL. So hopefully we'll see how that goes. And I think it's just a sprain, but we'll see. Trying to remember if there's anything else. I think that's mainly it. So let's talk about some of these blowouts real quick, or at least just mention the scores. South Carolina State, which was Thursday, by the way, due to the hurricane. Thoughts and prayers are with all those affected by it. If you're in the position where you can donate, please do. There's lots that you can give to. I know Red Cross is one of them, but there's a lot of people in need right now down there. Anyway, so that is why this game was moved, because of that. But South Carolina State at South Carolina blowing them out 50-10. I got the point in this one. And then Eastern Washington at Florida. This also another game moved because of the hurricane, moved to Sunday afternoon, actually. Florida winning this one 52-17. Matt and I actually had the same differential, but you do the math, Matt gets the point. So congrats, Matt. So do you guys want to talk about any of that before we move on?
Yeah, I want to know why in the world we were talking about Spencer Rattler for Heisman. Why? He threw 2 picks to South Carolina State.
I believe his QBR is actually the lowest in the league right now. I think he's 14 out of 14.
I'll believe it.
Yeah.
Although Oklahoma hasn't looked very good since he left. Just saying.
Well, that's true. I was going to say.
They just lost to, who'd they lose to this past weekend? They lost to Kansas State. I think they got dumped by Kansas State.
Yeah. Gosh, who was it? Somebody else lost to TCU. Was it them or was it somebody else? I don't know.
Maybe it was Oklahoma.
I don't know. It was bad though. I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So neither side of that equation really having a lot of fun right now.
Nope.
All right. So current pick'em standings. I got 24. Matt's got
we have to talk about Florida.
Oh yes. Do you want to talk about them?
I don't want to talk about them. I just think we should mention that their game got moved to a Sunday game because of the hurricane, like you mentioned. Did you say the score? And I just completely lost my mind.
Did. I mentioned, Matt and I had the same differential. We had to do the math on that one to get the point. So,
well, never mind. Okay, I just wasn't. I didn't have my listening ears on.
No, you're good. Current pick'em standings. I got 24. Matt has 18, and Jesse has 11. Long ways to go yet. So.
I'm catching up. I'm in double digits.
I was going to say you have been gaining some ground there. So let's talk about a little bit of news that's out there.
Here's the news.
All right, so new AP poll, the latest in the meaningless poll that's out. Number 1, Bama. Let's just pause for the rat poison leaving Athens.
Maybe.
The rat poison's still there. You guys are in the top 3. You still got rat poison.
We're the reigning national champions. The rat poison remains.
Let's get through these, and I will say why I would. Yeah. Anyway, so number 2, Georgia. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 4, Michigan. Number 5, Clemson. Number 6, USC. Number 7, Oklahoma State. 8, Tennessee. Number 9, Ole Miss. Number 10, Penn State. And then SEC teams rounding out the top 25. Number 13, Kentucky. Number 23, Mississippi State. And then number 25, LSU. Look at LSU getting back in the top 25. So
hate it.
Do you guys have any thoughts on that? I know we just started to, but
Clemson people. I don't I literally I just argued. I just had an argument about this right before we got on air. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Because I was like, why are you here? They were like, we're the only team that's beaten 2 top ranked opponents. I'm like, who? Wake Forest and NC State. But like, no. it's Wake Forest and NC State. And I understand they're ranked, but they're ranked because y'all don't play anybody else in your conference. So you have that. It was a long argument. They did not concede to my logic.
I'm shocked.
But I don't understand why Clemson is 5. I don't understand why USC is 6. It makes no sense to me. Whatever.
I agree.
They got a tough schedule out there, Jesse. They got some quality. I'm sorry, I can't even say that with. I can't even say it. No, I would not have had a problem with Georgia being further down. As a matter of fact, I wish that they would have. In a poll that means nothing, I wish that they would have dropped to number 5 for that matter. Because I really think there needs to be a wake-up call. And that kind of pathetic performance.
Oh, I guarantee they got a wake-up call that next day. I have a hard time imagining that Kirby's going to let them not have a wake-up call after that game, Wes.
Yeah,
he does not strike me as the type to let that kind of thing slide.
Sure, and I think obviously you can do drills and all this stuff to kind of try to rattle them and wake them up, but I mean, just mentally they've all got to get there, and realize that you do actually, in fact, have to show up and play the game and do your best, even against a quote unquote trash opponent. Yeah. Exactly. And Kent State and Mizzou both. If that doesn't prove it, I don't know what it does. And then, well, you did mention Bryce Young's injury day to day, so we'll keep an eye on that. All right.
By the way, before we press on from the AP poll, it personally offends me that Tennessee is ranked behind Oklahoma State and USC. I'm just saying. I'm gonna throw that out there. So there's that.
Understood.
I'm upset about that.
I get that.
Even if we didn't play this weekend, we should still be ranked out of those two.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into an opinion segment that's quite heated at the moment.
Sir, if I may venture an opinion.
I'm not really interested in your opinion, 3PO.
Yeah. Well, that's just like your opinion, man.
All right. Well, so if you've looked at the NFL at all lately, you've seen Tua and his recent injury, and just how that whole situation was handled. And the opinion segment question is, will we see a trickle-down effect on concussion protocol from the NFL to the NCAA following the scandal around Tua? And if we do, what should be done to further protect players? Jesse, I know that you're the one who kind of came up with this. So what are your what are your thoughts?
Actually I want to get y'all's thoughts first.
Oh, sure.
This is something I've been just like heated about since Thursday. And so I would love to get y'all's thoughts on this. It's a developing story, so I know more is going to continue to come out and the investigation is ongoing, but would love to get y'all's take first.
My first thought is that there has to be some kind of accountability, because, and that's the first off the bat, the only way that I can think to improve things, because supposedly we had a system that was supposed to work. But when you can, assuming that this is what happened, and probably is what happened, someone was paid off to give a certain medical analysis on a particular injury. And now that person's career is, ruined now, thanks to the fact that they listened to that. They've been since fired and no one is going to go see them now. So it's not all good for them. But when something like that happens, it kind of opens your eyes. You're like, well, gosh, if these, supposed medical professionals are giving bad advice, we have to have some kind of validation. I don't know how that would happen or what kind of entities we need to get involved, but there has to be some kind of accountability. And it's a shame because when you're dealing with, somebody's health, especially brain injury type things, that's huge and obviously affects the rest of their life. This is not just an immediate type situation and, oh, my arm hurts, it'll get better. No, if you have a brain injury and it's not diagnosed properly, that's life-changing. So in my mind, the only way that this could be improved in both the NFL and NCAA is some kind of accountability. I don't really know what that looks like, if that means like a mandatory second opinion or some kind of way to validate a diagnosis, but it has to be done because you're playing with fire here. I don't know, Matt.
I'm when you look at the situation around Tua and you see what the initial impact was from when he got that first concussion a couple weeks ago, and you saw just the way he reacted when he popped up off the turf, you knew that something was wrong. I mean, you could tell just from the way he was walking. He did not need to go back out there. And correct me if I'm wrong, he went back out there, did he not?
Yeah, he played the whole second half.
Right. Okay. That's problem number two. Not to mention the fact that, less than a week later, in fact, I think only 4 days later, he's in another game and gets an even worse concussion when he gets spun to the ground. And you could tell the minute he hit the ground from the way his hands were,
Oh yeah.
that something had gone wrong. So, yeah, I agree with you, Wes. I think there needs to be some sort of accountability. If there was a professional that was involved where there was a decision made to play the kid as opposed to what was in his best health, and they were only worried about making sure he played, then somebody needs to lose their license as a doctor. I'm sure that there's some board somewhere that'll handle that kind of they think it's got to be malfeasance of some kind. Just the fact that they trotted him out there after that first game, I was like, because we were watching the game when we were calling the House and County League county game the other day, and I remember thinking, I thought Tua had a concussion. How is he back out there already? He just had a concussion on Sunday, and then they throw him right back out there, and then he gets hurt again, and that's not kosher. As opposed to, in regard to if it'll trickle down to college is so slow to take any sort of advanced steps towards anything. Now, granted, concussion protocols and the importance of mental health and all that over the last couple of, about the last decade has really gotten a lot better. But I don't know, even if the NFL comes out with some sweeping, you have to have 3 doctors sign off on this concussion protocol thing. I don't know if NCAA will sanction that, or if the SEC will sanction that, or what that will look like. I just have a hard time imagining that they'll even bother getting involved with that particular end for a while, at least.
Yeah. Jesse, now what do you think?
Now all of my thoughts, lots of thoughts. So I think number one, what blows my mind about the Tua Tagovailoa situation is that after Sunday's game, when he continued to play a second half, after showing a very clear neurological response, a very physical neurological response with not being able to properly walk off the field on his own. Yes, he said that it was a back issue, but did you know that he was not under concussion protocol the week leading into the Cincinnati game at all?
Seriously, at all?
Nothing. He was not under concussion protocol.
I don't understand that. That makes no sense.
No, that's negligence. It's just pure negligence. And for him to go into that game, and if you look at that hit, it's a clean hit. It's not a targeting hit. It's nothing like that. When he went out in Cincinnati, his head bounced against the grass, and then his hands went like that. So it goes beyond. I think we look so often, and we were talking about it before, where everyone gets frustrated, let them play. And they do a lot to change the rules in order to avoid those really hard crown of the helmet hits, things like that, the blindside hits, blindside blocks, all that. But there is an area of, there's only so much you can help as far as changing the rules of the game to prevent this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he had a clean hit. It's fine. We saw in the Arkansas game with Alabama, the ref got hit. His head bounced the same way too. As it just depends on your noggin. But I think the big issue is there is not as much accountability like you mentioned, because what happens is, yes, you can see a very clear neurological response physically in some of these cases. It was to his hands. Other players had different reactions. There are steps within the protocol to try to understand if someone does have a concussion or not, because not all the time do people show a physical response. Sometimes they'll show, a mental kind of response when they can't answer questions and things like that. There is no one test that can truly prove that you have a concussion. It's not like a broken bone where we can take you in, we can scan you, and we say, yep, that's a break right there. We'll fix that right up. it relies on several steps. And even then they're not always clear. What needs to have, I think, some dealings is the fact that we are relying on professional players that know they need to go out there, feel like they need to go out there. They're these disciplined, macho men that are taught their entire lives, just rub some dirt in it, suck it up, get out there. Everybody gets hurt. In the instance of a quarterback, you look at the other guys on your team, you see that they're getting injuries all the time. They're playing hard. They're getting hit all the time and they're fine. And you as a quarterback think, well, I don't have that much physicality in at least the position I play as much as a lineman or whoever. So surely I'm okay. I can't be a wimp about it and just ask to be taken off the field. You're asking a professional athlete or a college athlete who wants to get to the next level, who wants to be seen, who wants to be the hero, who wants the spotlight and doesn't want to let their team down, to report to somebody that their head feels off, that something doesn't feel right. Because you look at these guys, they're the ones having to answer the questions. They're having to self-report their symptoms when you can't see them just outright because no bones popping out of their arm. And these guys, I feel like, in my opinion, don't have the platform in which they are encouraged to self-report something like this. Tua Tagovailoa said that it was a back pain issue. He may have been told to say that. He may have said that because he felt like he didn't want to let his team down, which is ridiculous. And hopefully after this incident, if that's the case, and as he gets older, he'll understand that this one game, that's not worth it. But after 2 seasons in the league where he was getting shuffled around, he was a backup. His team tried to make a play for Tom Brady, tried to get Deshaun Watson at one point. He felt like his job was in trouble. He's finally getting into a groove. There's a potential $50 million contract on the line. He doesn't want to lose that. He's going to go out there. So there has to be some sort of accountability where we're helping these players feel like they have a platform in which they can say, my head doesn't feel okay. And we have to even guard them from themselves. I don't know how to guard them from themselves. It's certainly not more rule changes within the gameplay, because I think we've done all we can do and still maintain the actual game. But there's got to be something, once we see someone's head gets hit, that we say, okay, we're not just going to rely on this 18-year-old or this professional guy, and we're going to make sure that we're safeguarding you from yourself and from the business that surrounds both the NCAA and the NFL, and protecting the actual physical humans and their brains. Because if we learned anything, look at Aaron Hernandez. Swiss cheese for brains does not lead to good things. And I hope that everyone takes a second and takes this really seriously, because it is a really serious thing.
Yeah. And, you know, more, it's, you know, it's been shown that the more concussions you have, the worse it gets every time. And the likelihood that, you know, one time you may not wake up from that concussion. I know that's a consideration for a lot of players who have had multiple concussions in their careers. I know James Harrison, who played for the Steelers, used to play with this like military grade Kevlar in his helmet, just so he wouldn't get another one. And, you know, being a Steelers fan, I hear a lot of that stuff. And Ben Roethlisberger also, one decision thing that factored into his decision to retire was the multiple concussions he'd had over his career. And, you know, I want to actually, you know, be a dad to my kids one day and, you know, actually be able to interact with them. So, you know, these are people, you know, so it's,
and in the case of the NCAA, these are kids.
Right.
These are children.
And I'd like to point out one more thing before we move on. And that's the fact that Thursday night football, no player likes Thursday night football. They all hate it. Because
I don't understand why they play games on Thursday.
It's an insane turnaround. What'd you say? It's like 4 days later. I mean,
it was Sunday to Thursday. It's like 3.5.
Right.
Yeah.
You've just, you know, been beaten up all day, and then you got to turn around in 3.5, 4 days and play another one. Yeah, no player likes that. And that's been a thing ever since they've created Thursday night. For the best interest, I think they need to do away with it. I know the networks don't want to hear that. I know some fans don't want to hear that, but they need to just do away with it. It's not good. All right. Well, good opinion segment, very relevant, something that needs to be discussed. So let's get a little bit of feedback from our listeners.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
All right. Well, we actually had a good amount of listener feedback this week. Lots of good comments. I'm actually going to kind of read through them here, and then any that stand out, you guys just chime in afterwards with whichever one you want to pick. So Jake's Take podcast responded to ours, and their biggest takeaway is that Georgia is more mortal than we thought, which we talked about. Sheila says she is shocked at the 3 3/4 quarters that Missouri was whipping UGA, and I'm right there with you. Danny says his biggest takeaway is the Gators look great against a lower tier team. Go Gators! They're, it is what it is. Jody is shocked at the way State handled the Aggies, and I cannot disagree with that. KW says Ole Miss has a change dart, and receivers are getting better every game. Heath is good. And they talked about him, Heath Malik, in the game, how he transferred from State. Now, not a lot of players do that. Go to your in-state rival to transfer. So, they said, why did you want to do that? Because you're going to get heckled, right? And he said he just wanted to play for Lane Kiffin. So, can't argue with that logic. And then finally, this is a bonus, and this is a fun one. We talked about this one. Casey Jacobs says he thinks that Texas A&M is ranked too high, to which I say unranked is too high. I love that.
Maybe he meant was.
Maybe that could be. Maybe I'm misreading that. But just
I hope he means is.
Yeah. So I don't know. Did any of those stand out to you guys? Do you want to discuss?
The one about Ole Miss. I think we look at so many coaches and we see that their players don't progress while they're there. They don't get any better. There's no development, but I don't think you can say that about a Lane Kiffin team. I think the players that go and play for Lane Kiffin, especially if you look at a quarterback that nobody knew who, last year, when you look at the progression from the years before this year, I think offensively his players, they get better. And that's just him as a coach and how much his players like him and really buy into what he sells.
It is fun to watch.
It's going to be
a player who comes under his tutelage, for lack of a better word. I mean, just kind of rise, as we saw Matt Corral do. Matt, what do you got?
It's gonna be swell when Lane takes over for Nick after he retires.
Jesse's like, I don't know what to think about that. Is it good? Is it bad?
I just started short circuiting.
That is a distinct possibility. I would like to go back to the original one that said that Jake's Take podcast when he said Georgia's more mortal than we thought. I'm going to disagree. We've seen this Georgia team. I think they hit a hiccup. I think that's all this was. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this Georgia team's just as stacked as last year's Georgia team. So I think that struggle against Missouri was an aberration. I don't foresee them struggling going forward.
Well, Matt,
somebody
I hope
finds
you're correct.
Some juju somewhere.
Auburn would be the one to find it.
I know, right? So we're going to talk about.
No. They used up all their special powers when they had Missouri fumble it on the 1 yard line into the end zone for a touchback, so they'd win that game. They used up all they had left this year. Then,
I mean, Coach Drinky owed Harsin a favor. I mean, he gave him his first job or higher job back in the day. Whatever. Anyway, all right, let's talk about some of those games coming up.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
All right, so first is number 8 Tennessee at 4-0, 1-0 in the SEC at number 25 LSU, 4-1, 2-0 in the SEC, noon on ESPN. Jesse, what is your prediction for Tennessee at LSU?
I know what the rankings say. I know what happened with LSU this past week. I know. I see it. My gut is saying LSU. I don't know why. I don't know. There's no reason for my madness. But they are in Baton Rouge, which is tough to play, even if it's not a night game. I'm going LSU in a close one. I'm picking the Tigers 28-24, and I don't know why. Don't ask.
All right, Matt, they're wearing those smoky gray alternates, and they say when you look
which
good,
worries me.
You feel good, and when you feel good, you play good.
No, that's fine. You can say that all you want. I don't want anything breaking from the routine. Makes me nervous.
All right.
I'm picking UT in this one. Smoky grays and all. I'm gonna pretend that didn't happen. The whole smoky gray decision. I just that makes me worried. It makes me very concerned because Tennessee right now, according to Vegas, is favored by 2.5. I'm going to say Tennessee's offense is going to be a bit too potent for LSU to keep up, and we are very lucky this game is at noon on a Saturday in Baton Rouge, because if this game was played at 7:00, that's a different ball game. But because it's an afternoon game, I'm going to take the Vols 31-20.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like you said, Death Valley, LSU's got that going for them, but I think Tennessee has improved enough, and I think LSU is rebuilding enough that I think Tennessee has a slight edge in this one. However, if this had been a night game, I would have picked LSU, no question. But I'm going with Tennessee 31-28. So,
no question. The way our offenses look for the last couple of weeks, no faith.
Well,
none.
Yeah, just weird stuff, All right. Next, we have Arkansas at 3-2, 1-2 in SEC. At number 23, Mississippi State, 4-1, 1-1 in the SEC. Noon on SEC Network. Jesse, what's your prediction for Arkansas at Mississippi State?
Finally, the Razorbacks have to travel. I feel like every single game has been in Fayetteville. This one is in Starkville, which I think is advantageous for the Bulldogs. I am actually, after seeing their performance this past week, I'm going to pick Mississippi State 38-21. I think their offense is potent enough to put up some scores against the Razorbacks, and I just don't know that Sam Pittman's team gets it done.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah, I think Mississippi State's going to be coming off a big win against A&M. I think Arkansas is going to be looking to bounce back. I think Arkansas is going to win this ball game 24-20.
Okay. Yeah, I think obviously this is in Starkville, and I know Mississippi State's on a roll coming off a huge win, but I also think Arkansas has been kind of backed into a corner here as well. They're a dangerous team. Obviously, they're wanting to atone for those losses. Yeah, I know the experts are actually picking Mississippi State by about a touchdown, but I'm going to go with Arkansas. I'm going to go Arkansas 31-24. So let's move on to Missouri 2-3, 0-2 in the SEC, at Florida 3-2, 0-2 in the SEC, noon on ESPNU. Jesse, what do you got for this one?
Don't know. Last week was weird. I don't know. It makes me uncomfortable. But I'm going to pick the Gators. They're in Gainesville, and last week had to be maybe a fluke. I don't know, but I'm going to pick the Gators 28-27 because I feel like they're closely matched.
All right. Matt, what you got?
Yeah, I think Missouri is probably going to be coming off of a little bit of a letdown after last week against UGA. I think they're going to fall to 0-3 in SEC play. I think Drinky's time is coming to an end. So I'm going to pick Florida in this one. I'm going to say Florida wins this one by 2 scores, 38-24.
All right. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to think about last weekend, especially. Like, is Mizzou a potentially good team? Like, is that like a thing? Is Georgia just potentially that bad? Like, all uncertain things being equal, though, I think all of that isn't going to change my mind about this game. I'm going to go with Florida, which was kind of my gut to begin with on this. I'm going with them winning 31-21, Florida. All right, Auburn at 3-2, 1-1 in the SEC. At number 2, Georgia 5-0, 2-0 in the SEC. 3:30 on CBS. Jesse, what is your prediction for the Deep South's oldest rivalry?
We better be glad this rivalry is not being played on the plains. But UGA better be careful. This can be a trap game if you let it. I hope Mizzou woke them up because Kent State obviously did not. They better not play sloppy football. They better come in serious and take their opponent seriously. regardless of how they've seen them play on film. I'm picking the Bulldogs, but as I said, be careful in Athens. Bulldogs take it 38-17.
You should have done the John Ralphio. Careful. Anyway, because that would be the worst. Anyway, Matt, what do you got?
Listen, this is a UGA team that struggled last week. That was an aberration. They're going to right the ship this week. This is an Auburn team that has looked abysmal, offensively speaking, at least for keeping up with other teams. So I know that they had some numbers last week. Yeah, can't run the ball. That's all that really matters in the SEC. So yeah, I'm going to say UGA wins this thing big, 38-10. And that last score for Auburn comes in garbage time.
Yeah, like you said, Jesse, I'm really thankful this one is in Athens. Like really thankful. Georgia's got to wake up. I mean, hopefully this like I said, Deep South oldest rivalry is just the game to do that. I'm hoping. Not really sure what the quarterback situation is looking like at Auburn. I mean, Ashford had a lot of yards in the last game. I assume we'll see more of him. There have been struggles really no matter who's under center there really. But I think that Georgia's got a major case of apathy and they got to be careful no matter what Auburn's looking like really. So they got to get that under control. I think, like you said, Matt, I think Kirby's going to do his best to kind of get that out of them. We'll see. I am going to go with Georgia a little bit less than what the spread is. I got Georgia 31-13. All right, number 9, Ole Miss 5-0, 1-0 in the SEC at Vanderbilt, 3-2, 0-1 in the SEC. 4:00 on SEC Network. Jesse, your prediction for Ole Miss at Vandy?
I hope Lane Kiffin has fun in Nashville. Ole Miss 42-10. Snooze.
Matt?
Yeah, I don't see Ole Miss struggling in this one at all. Part of me wanted to pick Vanderbilt just as a surprise and just to kind of see what would happen, but then the more rational part of my brain kicked in. So yeah, Ole Miss rolls this one 35-10.
I hear you. Yeah, I think Ole Miss takes care of business here, 38-20. All right, next is South Carolina 3-2, 0-2 in the SEC at number 13, Kentucky 4-1, 1-1 in the SEC, 7:30 on SEC Network. Jesse, what do you got for South Carolina at Kentucky?
Kentucky is hella embarrassed after this past weekend, and they are in Lexington, and they are not going to be kind to the Gamecocks. I am picking Kentucky 38-21.
All right, Matt, what do you got?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a bounce back for Kentucky as well. So I'm going to say Kentucky wins the thing 28-20.
All right, yeah.
In fact, I'm going to hold on. Wait.
Yeah,
I'm going to change that to 34. I'm sorry, hold on. I can't see my thing. You're in the way.
Oh,
did I say 28-20? Okay, there we go. I'm actually going to say 28-17. I don't think Carolina is going to have that much success overall.
All right. Yeah, I agree. I think Kentucky's going to bounce back in this one. I got 31, Kentucky winning 31-20. All right, Texas A&M at 3-2, 1-1 in the SEC at number 1, Alabama 5-0, 2-0 in the SEC. That is the 8:00 slot on CBS. CBS only does this once or twice a year, so it's going to be a big one, or at least they're hoping so. So Jesse, what is your prediction for this one?
I'm hoping it's a very lopsided big one. I am very thankful that this is played at Bryant-Denny Stadium. I think it is going to be an electric atmosphere because we're still upset over last season, and I wish I could be there, but I am picking the Tide 38. You know what? Hold on a minute. I'm adjusting.
I shouldn't have put my score up there.
I'm adjusting. Give me a moment.
My second number was different.
All right, I'm going Tide rolls 41-10.
Okay. Matt, what you got?
Y'all are giving way too much credit to A&M right now. They have looked atrocious. So Bama's going to win this thing big, and they're going to win 49-14. You watch. This is going to be a bloodbath.
So we didn't say necessarily when those points would be scored. I think probably going to be a bloodbath for the most part, but then A&M might get a score, maybe 1 or 2 at the end. I am going to go. So this game had, like I said, had so much potential at the beginning of the season. Now A&M's lost twice and is unranked. Granted, anything can happen, but I think there's not too much drop off. I think even if Jalen Milroe gets to start, which I expect he probably will, I don't think they're going to try to bring Bryce in too early, especially if they don't necessarily have to. So I got Bama winning this one 38-14. So, all right, that does it for our upcoming games. So looking forward to watching those this weekend. And now let's get into our Just for Fun segment, which is, none other than just Mike Leach being himself. So let's listen to the second half of that interview with Mike Leach. It's regarding wedding advice.
Coach, I know you have strong thoughts on weddings. I'm in the middle of planning one right now. Do you have any advice for me?
Who are you marrying?
His name is Trevor.
Okay, yeah, well, I'll have to just set up a meeting and I'll talk to him. Okay, so where's Trevor from?
He's from Florida.
What does Trevor do for a living?
He works in sports as well, covers football.
He does what?
He covers football as well.
Really? Well, I don't know. We'll keep a close eye on it, but whatever you and Trevor decide, I would kind of keep it on the down low, which you failed to do that. Trevor was probably planning to, but you didn't. So go ahead and don't say anything else about it. But as soon as the season's over, or even an off week, go elope. Trust me on that. Go elope. Because basically every female in the family is going to terrorize you guys until it's over. Once it's over, I mean, they'll be upset for a few days, but it'll be over. And then, you cruise along, have a happy marriage, have a happy life.
I'll pass along the message. Thanks, Coach. Congrats on the win.
Trevor, unless he's crazy, is totally on my side. And trust me on this. If Trevor doesn't have the sense to do that, tell him to call me, because, he needs to do trust. I've told all my kids, I'll give you $10,000 extra if you elope. So far, they haven't done it, but I would, too.
I'll have him call you, for sure.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thanks.
Oh, man, I don't even know where to start.
Coach, I know you have some strong opinions about weddings. Why do we know this? We don't know this about any other coach.
Yeah. Oh, he has discussed weddings before. I think it was when he was with Washington State.
He did, but that's the funny thing is we can't say that about any other coach. We can only say it about Mike Leach.
Strong feelings. Oh man, I just love the whole just rambling through and what is it? Oh, we'll have to schedule a meeting. he's all in on this. I'm going to schedule a meeting with Trevor. I love also when he's like, we're going to keep a close eye on it. What does that even mean?
I wish, I hope my biggest goal would be that whenever I get engaged, that Mike Leach would have a sit down with whoever I'm supposed to marry.
What would be the best is if Mike Leach was on the side, like a marriage counselor. How you have to go through the counseling classes or whatever before you get married or whatever. And that would just be epic.
I would go, that's the only counseling for marriage I would want to go through. And I would take the 10K.
Exactly. Right. That's what I'm thinking.
Honestly, here's my thing. And you guys can quote me on this. When I get engaged, I will be sending a letter to Mike Leach. And I am going to say, "Dear Coach Leach, I heard you. I think it makes perfect sense. I haven't told anybody. We want to elope. Does the offer still stand? We will meet with you prior. You name the day, you name the time. I will take off work."
Right. Your kids didn't take advantage of the offer. So can I?
I'm not joking. I will write a letter.
I love it. I think that's great. But yeah,
the man is a national treasure and should be treated as such. I've been saying that for a decade.
No doubt. No doubt. All right. Well, that's a good note to end it on. So appreciate you guys listening to the show or watching, depending on how you're taking it in. Email, if you would like to contact us, email us at pigskinsandpageantry@gmail.com. We are at Pigskins and Pageantry on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Twitter, we are at PPSEC Podcast. Don't forget, we are available for download on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and most podcasting apps for iPhone, Android, and other operating systems. We are on Amazon Music and iHeartRadio now, so we are just trying to get on all the things. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment. We would love it if you would subscribe and review. 5 stars. We'd greatly appreciate that. Increase our visibility and increase how many people we're able to reach with the show. And we would greatly appreciate that. So, as I mentioned, more fun games upcoming, lots of good SEC matchups to watch. So I'm looking forward to those. And this is Wes. Until next time, go Dogs.
Oh, let's just beat down Jimbo Fisher. I just beat the hell out of those Aggies. Roll Tide.
Always with the Jimbo hate. Guys, it's LSU week. Let's go get them, boys. Go Balls.